Hi, Adam Spears with Cross Country Mortgage. So this week I wanted to discuss credit. It's very important in any transaction, especially when you're borrowing hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I wanted to discuss the difference between maybe some of the credit monitoring software that you all use and the daily credit scores that you see, and also what we as loan officers and mortgage companies use to determine what your qualifying credit score is. So there's a lot of credit monitoring companies that are out there. It's a booming industry. But the scores aren't always necessarily going to correlate to when we pull an official credit report that has all three bureaus on it. Simply because a lot of times when you're using, say, Experian tracking or just tracking a specific bureau, they might not report all of the same things in the same way. That's why all your credit scores aren't exactly the same. So a big one is typically Credit Karma. I'll talk to people on the phone that say, my Credit Karma score is in the 750s, and then we pull credit and it happens to be a lot lower than that. So what I recommend when using these kind of credit tracking softwares, and when I'm particularly working with a client that I'm doing some credit repair for, these services, a credit monitoring service, are really great to signify changes. Maybe not exact scores, but changes, especially if we're working on somebody, maybe to get something deleted from their credit report. Those services are going to show you if your credit report is going up or down. Those are the things that we really want to know, maybe not so much the exact scores that they're reporting. So that's going to be really important. So then to touch on what we actually use in our credit reports, and we pull a tri-bureau or three-bureau credit report, is going to be Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. We pull all three credit bureaus. And what we do is we don't take an average of the three scores. We use whatever the middle score is. So whatever reporting bureau is your middle score, that's going to be your qualifying credit score. Now when you add a co-borrower to the file, whoever has the lower middle credit score, that's unfortunately the one that we have to use, even if you're adding a co-borrower. So it's important that if we come to a transaction where you're adding a co-borrower, we make sure that their credit is at least as good or better than yours. So that's kind of the ins and outs of credit tracking. And I did want to leave you with just a little tidbit on what are some of the two top things that you can do in order to make sure that you maintain a high credit score or to see your credit scores go up. The first is if you have any derogatory items or items in collection. So derogatory items are going to be things that may be registered as late payments. I mean, even as much as 5 or 6 years ago, if you have late payments, it could be derogatory. Doesn't mean that the account's in negative standing, it just means that it's derogatory, and it might still be slightly affecting your credit score and bringing your scores down. The other big thing is going to be anything that's in collections. If there's a balance, you need to negotiate to have that item removed from your credit report prior to paying anything. Do not pay a dime until they agree to remove it from your credit report. So those are going to be the two top things that I would suggest. The third one, which is pretty important too, is if you're carrying any credit balances, credit cards, anything like that, make sure that you are keeping those balances below a 30% utilization rate. The second you go up above 30% in the utilization of your credit card, it's going to have a negative impact, again, on your credit score. So if you want to have any longer conversations about credit, I could talk about credit for days, obviously. Feel free to call or email me here, and we can have a longer conversation. And as always, we'll see you next week.